Hey guys, welcome back. My name is John Mendoza, and this video will be actually looking into pen testing vulnerable VM. For this exercise, we've actually picked up a VM called as the PwnLab, right? You can find it over here in this link, or you can even Google it and get a different mirror link downloading as well, right? It's a free open source VM, right? So what I've done right now is I have actually set up my Kali Linux on VMware, right? And I've also set up my PwnLab, right? You just need to download the VM and then import it into your virtualization software. It could be VirtualBox or VMware as well, right? So this is my PwnLab and this is my Kali Linux, right? So now we will try to gain the root access for PwnLab, right? So that's the whole exercise. Great. Let's start. So during the exercise, we'll be basically using a bunch of new tools which we can leverage in such scenarios wherein you have to pen test a VM. Fun. Great. Let's start. So the first one we are going to check is we're going to check the network, right? Let's check my Kali Linux. So this is the IP address of this particular network, 192.168.16.215, right? Let's keep that in mind. To make it easy, I have just kept both my Kali Linux as well as my PwnLab in the same network, right? The same subnet. Great. So let's start with the first command, right? So we'll be using net discover. Right? Net discover. We're gonna use the I attribute and the Ethernet interface which we want to scan. So in our case, we'll be scanning the 0th interface. So the scanning will start, right? And we will at the end of the scanning, we will end up getting the IP address of the vulnerable VM, which is what we want. So I think we already have it here, right? So none of the other IP addresses seem to be the addresses of the VM of the PwnLab or the victim VM, right? I strongly suspect it to be this particular IP, right? It's 16.216. So let's stop this and let's run an nmap on this particular IP, right? Let's take this. Right? And while the nmap is running, let me jot down some notes. So I suspect this to be the IP. So we have got the IP. Great. So the nmap ran and we came to know the various ports which are open on our particular vulnerable VM. So you can see the title here, it is PwnLab, right? So we were on the right one. Great. So we have zeroed down, we know the IP address now, and we also know the ports which are open, right? So let's just make a note of this because it might be useful later. Let's make a note of this, right? I could probably remove all of this. So it's going to be this one. Great. So we have like 3 ports open, 80, 111 and 3306. Out of this, the 80 port is like super interesting for me. Also the MySQL port, right? But we'll start with the 80 port, which is the HTTP port. What can we do with this? So for this, we will have to now go ahead and open my browser, right? So let's see if we can reach this 192.168. Sorry, I forgot the IP address. It's 16.216, right? So this is the PwnLab, right? You have the login here. Let's try the basic username password. It's always admin, right? So sometimes people forget to change it. Never. So you can see login failed. So the basic username of admin and password being admin did not work. You could even try SQL injection by putting a quote and probably this. Okay, that failed as well. So SQL injection also failed. Okay, no, nothing to worry. Now probably what we could do is go back a little bit and use a couple of other tools to do more reconnaissance. I would like to use Derby, right? Derby is pretty interesting, so I'm gonna put Derby, put the IP address of my bad, sorry, derby http. The IP address is something here. Let's copy the IP address and let's do this. Yeah, so there you go. The derby is running right now, and it is trying to fetch the directories from it basically tries to scan the whole web server, right? And this is what it got me. It got me like 2 important directories, right? So let's just take this information again, put it down here, right? Probably not this. Great. So we came to know that there are 2 important directories. One is the upload directory and the other one is the images directory. Great. Next, what do we do next? Let's run another tool called as the Nikto. So Nikto, again, kind of like a vulnerability scanner. So let's run Nikto here. Okay, I think that was a mistake. I hope I can cancel this. Yeah, sorry. So it's Nikto, but without the. So yeah, this is how you run it. You just need to give the IP address, right? So Nikto, you put a -h and you put in the IP address, right? So when you do that, it runs, and it is telling me that there might be a config.php file may contain the database IDs and passwords, which is like super important for me, right? So what do I do? Let me take this and paste this information here. So it says that config.php is a file where you store you do various settings, and it suspects that it might have the database IDs and passwords stored, right, for the databases on the config.php file. Great. Now comes the interesting piece. So we know that there is something called config.php, and let's try to access it. Can we access it directly? So if you can see if we can access this, let's see, config.php. Like, obviously I don't think anyone would have done this, but yeah, see, it gives a blank page, which means it's not located at that location. Okay, let's try to do what you call as the a directory traversal attack, right? A directory traversal attack would help us in this case because we really don't know where the config.php file is located. So let's do a pon -m http -h and the IP address, which is here, right? And what are we searching for? The file name config.php. Let's see if this gives us any information. Still running the test. Oh, sorry, I think I had to press start. Great. So you can see the directory traversal attack is being carried on, but there is no much success in this area. I've actually tried this earlier, and after some time, it basically tells that it was not able to find anything which was worth attacking, right? So let me stop this for now. I just wanted to show you how it works, right? So that was basically directory traversal attack. So there is no luck when it comes to directory traversal attack either. So what do we do next? Let's play with our burp. Burp is a very interesting and a smart tool. Okay. So while the burp is coming up, let me go and configure the proxy. So where do we do the configuration of proxy? Go down to the browser, go down to the preferences, just search for proxy, right? Settings, manual proxy configuration. The proxy will be at 127.0.0.1. Port is probably 80, right? And sorry, yeah, let's remove this piece. I think that should be fine. Okay, so that's our proxy setting. And once we have done that, so the burp suit is coming up, the free version. Oh, okay, so burp suit doesn't work that well with except temporary. So before this, Verbset doesn't work that well with the newer version of JRE. So what I'll do is I'll probably end up using the old version of JRE. So I think I can do that. Let's see. Do we have any old versions of JRE here? Yeah, so there are some old versions. So I'm going to use so I'm going to use the option 2 because I want to use Java 8. Right, that's done. Now let's open the burp. Great, and let's start burp. So now let's go to proxy options. There is already thing configured here, which means it's good. Let's what we'll do is let's go to this page. Let's turn off the intercept for a minute. Let's see if this is loading. Yeah, that is loading. Now what do we want? We want to intercept the let's first the login page, right? So this is very interesting for us. So yeah, let's first the login page. What I'll do now is I'll turn on the intercept and let me click on this, right? So when I did that, you can see here the request was intercepted, which is pretty good, right? So what we are trying to do now is we are trying to access. So we have realized that this is what we have done. We have got the IP address. We have realized that there are certain open ports, and we also know there are like 2 directories out here, right? And we also know that there might be a config.php file in the web server which we can read, or which we can use to figure out the usernames and passwords for the database. Great. Now to obtain this resource, which is config.php, what we'll do is we'll see if we can access it using using verb. So right, so you have page is equal to login to be a parameter here. How about we fuzz this particular parameter, right, for certain common payloads, and see if any of them is vulnerable, right? So I'll show you how to do that. So we'll take this particular request. Let's probably send it to intruder, right? So we are at the intruder. The IP address is 192.168.16.216, which is fine. Positions, I'm interested only in the login, so this one probably I can clear it off. Okay, so I'm at the login, which is good. Payloads. So when you go to the payloads, I already have a bunch of payloads which I have already prepared, right? There's a pretty common payloads which I use normally. So I'm going to paste this over here. Pretty simple payloads, right? So what we are trying to do is we are trying to fuzz this parameter, right, with all these various payloads here, right? Pretty cool, right? So yeah, looks good. So what we'll do now is we will probably start the attack. Right, you can see the attack here happening, right? So it's basically using all the payloads which I have set, and it is trying to create a request out of it, right? So the payloads are pretty simple. I mean, it's just trying to see if there is a possibility of opening the password file or shadow file, and these are some of the files which are very important in a Linux distro where you save all the sensitive information, right? So I'm basically trying to see if I can open any of these files using this request. I think this has completed. So once it is completed, what should be a next process? You go and arrange it in the descending order of the length, right? You can see that for the first few entries here, you seem to have some kind of a abnormal length, whereas the rest of them seem to be 456, right? Great. So what do we do? Let's pick one of it to start with. If you look at the response, right, the response looks like I'll probably expand this a bit, right? So the response looks like it is what does it look like? It looks like it is base 64, right? So let me take this. Let me just copy this from here to here. My bad. Let's take this from here. Let's put it till here. Right, copied. Now let's send this to decoder, right? Send it to decoder. On the decoder, we're going to decode this as base 64, right? So we did this. So we've got something amazing here. So let's copy this and paste it here, right? So this looks like the source code, right? It's a PHP source code, and something interesting here, it basically tries to whitelist the file types, right? So if you have seen the page of PwnLab, there was an option to upload files. So I think this is relating to that. It says that you can upload only JPEGs, GIFs, and PNG files, right? Pretty good, useful information. Moving on, the next piece, right? Let's see what do we want to do next. So let's probably see this information. What is that here? This response, right? So let's again do the same thing. Send it to decoder, and let's decode this as base64. So you can see here some information. Let's copy this, store it here, right? So you see here it basically is doing something related to cookie, right? So you can see it tries to take the parameter of language, right? So it takes this, probably in a get request, it takes the value for the parameter and then invokes a particular file which is corresponding to that cookie. So probably you have like different files for different languages, right? So this is what this particular code is doing. Again, could be something which we are going to exploit later, right? We are going to park it for now, right? Keep it here. Move on to the next piece, which is probably, wait, so let's go down to what do we see next? Probably this one, right? So what happens here? See the response. Let's just pick this. Okay, not that. Probably let's pick this one, right? So if you look here, yeah, so the response is pretty small, but what is this response? Send it to decoder, right? The base64. Probably something gibberish. Okay, or maybe did I do it right? Did I select the right one? I'm not sure. Okay, probably I did not. Let me try this once again. So here, I've selected everything. Let's send it to decoder. Right, so here at the decoder, decode as base64. Oh, great! Here you have. So we have something here. So we have some kind of credentials. This seems to be my a credential file, which is pretty good, right? So let's take this. Sorry, I think something wrong. Let me do this once again. Decode as base64. So let's go and paste this here, right? So we've got something. We've got root, and we've got the password for it, right? So this seems to be the username and password for my MySQL database, right? And this was actually stored in the config.php file, right? And that's how you can see here the fuzzing parameter was resource is equal to config, right? So we gave this as a fuzzing parameter, and we were able to obtain this in the response, which in turn is nothing but the contents of the config file, which are nothing but the username and password of the database. Okay, so we've got like very good information. What do we do next? The next piece is let's just pause this, or let's stop the proxy, right? Let's do this. Now let's go back to my terminal, right? On the terminal, what do I do next? So I know the username and password for, so let's try to connect to the MySQL, right? So MySQL -h, the IP address is going to be this one, right? And so I'm trying to log in as root. There we go, the password. So I've just now obtained the password, so I'm going to use this as the password. There we go. it was successful. We were able to get into the MySQL. So let me do show databases. Sorry, yeah, we have like 2 databases. Let's probably use the second one. So let's do users, right? So we are using this. Now let's check the tables in this particular users database. So we have like tables. We have one particular table called users. So let's do select all from users. Oh, that's interesting. So we have got like literally the username and password of 3 of the users. So let's go and paste this as well. There you go. Okay, this seems to be like base 64. So what we'll do is we'll pick this up, use our decoder here quickly and try to decode this. Sorry, my bad. Okay, let me just try to remove this, and I think I did not paste copy that, so let's copy this again. Do this. It's getting copied twice, is it? That's weird. Give me a minute to try to fix this. So this is what I want. Let me just copy this again. Yeah, so there you go. So I was able to decode this, and this is the password which I will actually use for the user Kent, right? So for user Kent, this is the base 64 username and password. So this is the base 64 password. I was able to decode it, and this is what we got. Now we can use this, right, to log in. So how do we do? So let's go back to the portal, right? So we have this as the portal. Let's put username as Kent and the password as whatever we got. Let's see if we can log in. Yeah, there you go, we are able to log in. Interesting. Okay, now let's create a very simple PHP executive, a file. So we have already realized that from the previous code which we fetched, we realized that this particular application accepts only files of this extension. So let's create a file of that extension, probably right. So let's do this. So what we'll do is let's open a text editor. Let's go to leaf pad, right? So on the leaf pad, let's create a very let's create something like a GIF file, right? So this one qualifies as a very simple GIF file. So this is where you give the extension, but then you also put in a very simple PHP code where you're telling, right, whatever command is being passed has to be executed on the shell, right? So once that is done, let's probably save this, save as on the desktop. Let's save this as command.png because PNG files are allowed. So we have saved this, right? So we save this on the desktop. Great. So what do you do next is let's go and upload this. So we'll browse this, you select it, and let's upload, right? So we have uploaded. Wonderful. So we did this. Next, we'll also see where does these files actually go, right? So let's probably do that. So we have uploaded a file, but where does this file actually go? So I believe it's here, and we also found earlier that there are 2 kinds of directories, right? So this is one directory. So let's go to this directory. Let's see if the files are here. There you go. So the file which we just now uploaded has come here, right? Very interesting. So we have to somehow send a command because we know that in this file we have a PHP code which can execute any command for you. The only goal here as an hacker has to be that you should somehow execute this file, and whatever commands you provide here should go as parameter to this particular file, because this file, though it is a .png, it actually has a PHP code inside it. So can we like simply try kind of like uh, you know like a brute force kind of a way? Can we do this? Maybe let's we know that it is index.php, right, which is the default page, but let's probably provide a get variable like command is equal to host name, right? Nope, that did not work, right? So we'll use burp to do this for us. Okay, so what we'll do is let's go back here, sorry. Okay, so let's go back to our burp, and let's turn on the proxy, and let's go here and let's hit the refresh, right? So you can see the particular request has been captured. The request is nothing but the request where I'm actually trying to like visit the home page, right? So that has been captured. What do we do next? So here we will send this to repeater, right? There are certain things to be done, so let's send it to repeater. So on the repeater, the first part is, yeah, we have to change this to command is equal to the host name. That's what we want to, that's our goal. We want to execute this command somehow, right? So we want to execute this command. We want this command to go as a parameter to the file which we have uploaded, right? So that's the step. Now if you remember, or if you look at this code here, what is happening is, because of this cookie, right, logic which they have implemented, we can somehow try to include a file, right, in this way, right? So the cookie file, there is no sanity check being done on the cookie file, so we can upload a cookie file. So what we'll do now is, so let's remove this cookie part, right? Sorry, let's just remove this cookie PHP part, and yeah, so what we'll do is let's put it as language. It should be of the same format here, right? So it's language equals to, right? So we this particular feature has been kept so that the cookie can change based on the different languages. Probably for English you have one cookie file, and for Hindi you have a different file, and so on, right? But we are trying to use this to complete our exploit, right? So we're going to do this. We're going to do a path traversal, go to the, we know that all our files, all the vulnerable, all the attacking file which we have uploaded is in the upload folder. Let's go to the upload folder. Let's get the name of the file, which is over here. Copy, right? So let's put this here. Paste, right? So we have pasted this. What else do we need to do? Yeah, I think looks good, right? Okay, looks good for me. Let's see. All right, so this is good. So let's hit the go here. So what happened? You can see that the command is equal to hostname was executed, and we got the reply as PwnLab in the response, which is amazing, right? So we were able to execute a command on the victim, right? How? By uploading file uh, a file which has been malformed, right? It is not actually a PNG file, it has PHP code in it. So by doing this, by sending a command is equal to hostname here, this parameter is basically being sent to this particular file, right? Because of the way the cookie logic has been implemented. As per the cookie logic, whatever parameters you send here has to be passed to the language parameter, right? But because we are passing the host name to the file, right, which we are pointing here, we are able to execute we are able to execute this particular command on the vulnerable, or on the victim machine. Great. Now what do we do next? So the next part is to obtain the reverse shell. Now there are like codes to get reverse shell, so I picked this one from the internet. It's a Python code to get reverse shell. I just need to change the IP address, which is 190 here. So this one has to be the IP address of the Kali machine. So what's the IP address of the Kali machine? So ifconfig. So it's 192.168.16.215. Okay, so let's change this to 16.215. Right, the rest all looks good. Right, so let's take this particular let me actually go to top little up so that you can see this. Right, so this is nothing but a very simple Python code to give us the reverse shell. Right, and most of the times Python is installed on this Linux distro, so it becomes very easy. Wonderful. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of this command, I'm going to paste my reverse shell. Right, so let's paste it here. Now just pasting is not sufficient. We are basically going to encode all the character, URL encode them. Right, so let's pick this from here and till where, till here. Right, till here. What we're going to do, we're going to take this and we are going to URL encode it. Convert selection, URL encode all characters. Right, so that looks good. Now before we run this, what we have to do is we'll have to go back to my attacking machine and create a listener. So netcat nlvp, and let's listen on the port which I earlier passed as part of the reverse shell. So the port I'm listening to is force. Great. So now let's hit the enter over here. So when I did that, let's see what happened. Here you go. We have got the shell. Right. Who am I? Right. So this is what you got. So I'll do host name. So you can see the host name is PwnLab. So basically I have got the reverse shell of the vulnerable machine. Right, now what do I do next? So the next is I basically go and get the TTY shell, right, because this is a basic shell and you don't have many functionality on this. So I'm going to get the TTY shell. How do you get the TTY shell? Again, run a very simple Python code which is going to give you that. Right, so let's paste this. So now right, so this looks good, which means if let's do a ID. Right, so I know the ID is good. Can I do sudo kent password? It's asking for password. We already have the password for kent, so let's take this and paste it. There you go. So we have logged in as kent now. Right, look at all the things what we are trying to do. We basically hacked into the vulnerable machine, and then we also logged in as kent. Right, so that's pretty good. After doing that, let's see if we can get to the root. Right, sudo su. Okay, it says that the command is not authorized for this user, so we have to think of, can we go to root? Yeah, you can't do that as well. So we have to now escalate privileges to become the root. Right, so what we have done is we have just got access to the kent account, right, onto the system, but it will be great if you can get access to the root, because then you'll have the control access. So for root privilege escalation, I have used the dirty cow vulnerability a lot, so I'm going to use the same thing here as well. Right, so as for the dirty cow vulnerability, let me just open up the link which I already got. So this is the dirty cow vulnerability for the system which I am running. So how do you know what system you're running? You just need to do uname -a. Right, so if you can see here, it's a Linux based system, and for this particular version of it, you have this to be your dirty cow vulnerability. So let me just pick this, Control A, Control C. So we have to go down to my other terminal, probably where I have logged in as or maybe open a new window. Right, so this is my Kali. Let's just pause this. Right, so this is my Kali on the left hand side, and the right hand side is my victim machine. Right, so what I'm going to do is, on my Kali, I'm going to go to the variable www and HTML, right? Let's open a file called let's open, probably get it right. Let's open a file, or let's create a file called cow probably 32.c. It's a C file, right? So it opened. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to paste the code which I got from the internet, right? This one. And save this. Sorry. So I'm going to save this. So I have to save this. Let me save this. This is good. So there you go. We have done that. So we have something called cow32.c being created, which is pretty good. Now let's create the Apache server, right? So you will get to know why I'm doing all of this in a minute. I'm going to start the Apache server, Apache 2. I'm going to start it. There you go. So I started it. Now what do we do? So we have the exploit created on my Kali machine, so what we need to download it on my victim's machine, right? So for downloading, what we do is we are going to go down to probably the temp folder, right? So we are in temp. Let's do wget, right? I hope this works. HTTP, right? It's going to be one. What is the IP address of my Kali machine? I think it is 215, right? If I'm not wrong. So it's 215. Let's remove this 216 to 215, and right, it is 215. Yeah, it's 215. And let's try to pull this cow 32.c. There you go. It was successfully downloaded from the attacking machine, right? So we have the exploit file. Now let's go and GCC compile this, right? So it's here. So we're going to use GCC, the cow file, cow32.c, right? And the object file is, let's call this as cow root, and let's put the other parameter, which is pthread, right? Looks good. So if you do ls, you get to know that the executable has been created, which is cow root, right? How do you run the executable? It's pretty simple. Let's go and do /cow root and see what do we have here. Does this look like the root? Does it? I'm gonna do UMI. There you go, root. So we have successfully obtained the root access of PwnLab, right? And uh, how did we do it? So if we have to brief it, what we did was we first tried figuring out the IP address of the victim, right? Then we tried to find the number of ports which are open. Then we tried to find what is the directory structure, right, of the web server. Found that there might be a config.php file which might have some very valuable information for us, like the username and passwords, right? We did the fuzzing of the login page to obtain some very good information, like what kind of files are allowed to be uploaded. We got information like the whole logic which is used for cookies, which seems very very amateur. So we were able to exploit this, and also we got a page with the username and password um, for the database, MySQL database. So once we had the MySQL database credentials, we logged into that, got the username and passwords of each of the accounts which are using the web portal, right? Then we created reverse shell, right? Reverse shell was run, and we got access to the we got the shell, right, of PwnLab. And after that we tried to get the TTY shell, and we escalated the privilege. So once we had the TTY shell, we figured that it would be great if we can get the root shell. Now for root shell, what we did was we ended up creating an exploit, or in our case we basically went and downloaded the exploit called Dirty Cow, which is actually used a lot, right? So we downloaded this, and we ran this exploit. So how we downloaded this, and we created the file on the Kali Linux, but now that file has to be transported to the victim, right? So that's why we kind of like downloaded it on this one. And once you had downloaded, now then you are able to run as well, and when you're running, you can see that you have got the root access. right? So pretty cool, isn't it? Right, so we've got the root access of PwnLab. Great. So thank you for watching, and keep supporting. Have a good day.